What is up, everybody? Welcome, one and all. Today, we are going to be going through a webinar on exactly how to make goals stick. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Making goals stick is one of the most important things that you're going to have to learn how to do if you want to have really outsized success. That is the key, is to have your North Star, know exactly where you're trying to get to, and then actually be able to follow through and make that happen. This is something that is a class that I originally wrote for Impact Theory University, which is why we are here. We have actually a very special offer that we're going to be announcing right this very minute, which is a $871 yearly access to Impact Theory University. This is the lowest price that we have done, will do in the future, and we're only letting 1,500 people in at that price. Now, before we talk too much about that, let me explain exactly what Impact Theory University is. So Impact Theory University is me distilling all the things that I've learned when I was in my early 20s. I was broke, lost, frustrated. I had a real sense of hopelessness. I didn't know how I was going to make my dreams a reality. And it was a really dark, frustrating period in my life. And then I end up, making a very long story short, I end up finding my way to business and understanding that I could end up controlling my own destiny. But I was going to have to get really good at something that at that time I knew absolutely nothing about. And so one of the most important things that I learned was the things that you need to do and believe, quite frankly, in order to get where you want to go. Now, ultimately, only your behaviors matter. When you think about executing at a high level, it comes down to behaviors and behaviors alone. But those behaviors are driven by beliefs. And so getting your beliefs in the right place so that you can align your behaviors is how you end up getting where you want to go. Now, by learning all of this stuff and deploying it in my life, and what I call the only belief that matters, which is that if you put time and energy into getting better at something, you will actually get better. Okay, that's the only belief that matters. And that's very much the belief that you're going to want to hold on to as we go through this. If you have historically given up on your goals, you haven't seen things through, then learning and really embodying that belief that you can get better at anything, but you're going to have to put time and energy into it. Now, once you believe that, then your behaviors follow. And you actually go put the time and the energy into getting better at those things that you're going to need in order to have the outsized success that I'm assuming that you want to have, and is why you've come here to take a webinar on making a goal stick. So that is now taken out to its extreme, exactly what Impact Theory University is about. It's that and a whole bunch of other things that took me from that lost, hopeless period in my life, being so broke that at one point I was literally scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car, to ultimately building a $1 billion business. It's called Quest Nutrition. Exiting out of that, my Quest grew by 57,000% in the first 3 years. Impact Theory has grown by, which is my current company, grown by 41,000% in the first 5 years. So what I try to get people to understand is the success that I've had in business isn't about something special about me. It's a set of ideas and behaviors that will govern whether or not you get into what I call the physics of progress. So progress has a nature, and there is just a way that progress works. And if you can learn that, plug into it, and be consistent, whether the thing that you're trying to develop a skill in is goal setting, or whether it's something very specific that you want to build, whether it's a company, whether you want to be a better teacher, whatever it is that you're trying to do, understanding that there is the loop that I call the physics of progress. And you can learn it, something that we're going to talk about today. So that ultimately is what Impact Theory University is about. It's distilling those ideas and those lessons that allowed me to go on and learn the things I needed to learn in my chosen areas in order to have success. So my hope is that by attending Impact Theory University, you guys will benefit from those ideas in the same way that I have, and it can really supercharge your learning no matter where you're headed. Okay, so that's the course that we're going to be talking about today, how to make any goal stick. again, was originally from Impact Theory University. So basically, you're getting a glimpse into the kind of thing that you would learn, the method that I use for teaching. And hopefully, if this adds as much value to your life as it has to mine, then you will see that there's value in joining with this special offer, which again is $871 for a full year of access. And again, that's the lowest price that we're going to do. And it is only available to 1,500 people. Now, if you act now, we have a fast action bonus, which is that right before COVID, I ended up doing these 2 things on stage that we called an evening with Tom, where I went through live in a more entertaining fashion. Because you're there on stage, happened to be a comedy club, and it just brings out a different side of me. And so you'll be able to see some of the ideas of Impact Theory University explored in a more fun and entertaining setting. And there were 2 of those, and we'll give you access to both of those if you act fast. So act quickly. Get those bonuses. All right, guys, I know that you had some homework coming into this, which is that you were going to write down your goals and what you've tried to do to achieve them. And my hope is that by the end of this course, you'll see a whole layer of new things that you could add to that to make sure that you can supercharge your learnings, get where you want to go, and really make the most out of your potential. Because ultimately, the goal is to take your potential and turn it into usable skill set. So having a lot of potential is not the same as actually actuating that in the form of skills. And at the end of the day, skills are what matter. And so skills are going to allow you to do things that other people can't do. And that ultimately is how we get into a whole host of things that are psychologically powerful, lead towards well-being, a sense of progress, and also fulfillment, which we will certainly talk more about. Okay, so first up, why does a course on how to make goals stick matter? The reason is that everything starts with your goal. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have tremendous clarity, and that's really where people fall down with their goals, is they don't have the level of clarity that they need. And if you don't have that goal, then you're not going to be able to get into that loop I talked about, which is the physics of progress, where you're doing something that is repeatable, that is designed to allow you to make incremental steps as you iterate your way to success. So you don't need to be a super genius. You don't need to have all of the answers. In fact, in some sense, you are quite literally going to fail your way to success, because in each failure is data. And from the data, we can sharpen our approach. And as we change our approach and improve the tests that we run, then we take bigger and better steps towards our goal. But you have to be willing to take the action, which means you have to be willing to run the risk of failing. And then when you do fail, that you've got to drink from the marrow of that failure so that you learn the lesson that you need to learn and you can keep moving forward. Now, one thing that is very distressing is that in life, you can do anything you want, just not everything. And so going back to this idea of goals are critically important and sticking with them is critically important, because you have to narrow the field down. And a lot of people get stuck. They have a lot of things that they want to do, and they try to put it under one overarching umbrella, like I want to help people. And that ends up being so vague that people don't know what to do with the next 15 minutes. Now, what I want to do is change the way that you think about a goal to being, you have the goal, and then you have the path to the goal. So you could even call it the mission, and then the micro goals. But that language is interchangeable for me. But we have somewhere that we want to get to, and then there are a series of steps that we are going to have to take in order to get there. It is a very long, difficult journey. But once we get on that and we realize that that really is the only way forward, then you can start making progress. But it starts with that level of clarity, because you're not going to be able to do all of it. Now, the way that I usually explain to people the level of clarity that you need is you need to be so clear you know what to do with the next 15 minutes of your time. So here's typically how people will come to me and they will say, Tom, I've heard you say that before. I completely understand that I have to be incredibly specific. And to that end, I know exactly what I want to do. And that is win a gold medal. And my response to that is, okay, amazing. But in what? The Olympics? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I want to win a gold medal in the Olympics. Wonderful. Do you want to win it in the summer or winter Olympics? Summer. Great. Swimming or tennis? Swimming. Fantastic. Do you want to do the backstroke, the freestyle medley? What are we talking about here? And that's the level where people are starting with, I want to win a gold medal. And we're narrowing it all the way down to, I want to win a gold medal in the Summer Olympics for swimming the freestyle medley. Okay, now then, I know what you should be doing with the next 15 minutes of your time. You should be getting in the pool and training on whatever stroke it is that you're going to pick to do in the freestyle medley. So that's how we take this very big thing, and by adding specificity, we end up narrowing it down to something that we can actually take action on. Now, if what you find yourself doing is that you don't know what to do with the next 15 minutes, odds are that we just haven't gotten to clarity yet. Okay, I want to preface all of this by saying that fulfillment is the ultimate punchline in life. So all of the goals that you're chasing, be very careful to make sure that they are goals that are going to lead you to fulfillment. So your goal and fulfillment as a North Star will work like this. Fulfillment is a nature-derived neurochemical state, meaning that nature, to make sure that you survived long enough to have children that survived, it imbued us all with a certain set of directives. So over millions of years of evolution, we have been selected essentially to respond to certain things with a pleasurable sense of well-being, or to feel like something is missing, we're feeling off. And that's where fulfillment as a barometer becomes very useful. So here's what happens. Fulfillment comes from the following. You work really hard. Okay, that's a key. Working hard is a key. It's a directive from evolution, where you're, millions of years, you're on the, plains of Africa, and you've got to go face lions and tigers and snakes and all of that. So you've got to be willing to go out, take risks, work hard, accumulate food, get wins, become a better hunter-gatherer, the whole nine. And so for the people that felt good when they did that, they survived. For the people that felt bad when they did that, and so they avoided it as much as they could, they didn't survive. So now we are the descendants of people who feel good when they work hard and don't feel good when they don't. And so the key now becomes to work hard at something that matters to you, and not just blindly work hard, which ends up being its own ring of hell. So you work hard towards something that's exciting to you and honorable. Okay, remember, this is the formula for fulfillment. So you work hard for something that gives you more energy than it takes. That's what I mean by exciting. You love doing it. And even, when you're in the mess of it and sometimes you lose and make mistakes, you still love it. And then there is that it's honorable, meaning that it elevates not only yourself, but other people. We're a social animal. So one of the directives in our brain that's gotten put there by evolution is a desire to contribute to the group. And so you put those things together. I'm going to work hard at something that excites me to gain a set of skills that allow me to serve not only myself, but other people. Okay, that's the recipe for fulfillment. If you're doing that, it's very resilient. You can have a bad day and still feel that you're doing something that matters, right? Meaning and purpose are hugely important. And as you think about your goal setting, I can just tell you right now, setting a goal for money is almost always a bad option. Setting a goal to protect your family, to set them up to be better off than you, that becomes far more interesting, because now it's at least something that you can attach to emotionally, and you can work hard, feel like you're contributing to the group. Okay, so that's why all of this matters. Now, why do people struggle with this? Part of the reason that people struggle with it is really pretty simple. In fact, I'll give you 3 reasons. Number 1, their goals are uninspiring. Remember, the goal has to be exciting. And if you're not excited by the goal, then you're really in trouble. So the goals have to be inspiring. And for most people, their goal is not. The second reason people struggle: success takes too long. Success, for better or worse, is a game of attrition. And if you want to win, one of the most important things is to just not give up. And that, I think, is really important for you guys to understand. The third reason that people struggle is that emotions can be overwhelming. So if I'm right about the physics of progress and it requires you to fail, or failure is certainly going to be an inevitable part of this whole process, the reason that failure works is because it hurts. And when you fail, you feel badly. Maybe people are pointing and laughing, and that makes you feel even worse. And so you say to yourself, I never want this to happen again. Now, in that moment, areas of the brain that have to do with attention and memory. So you're focusing really intently on something, and you're going to remember this. I don't want to make this mistake again. I don't want to feel the way that I feel now again. And by being in that situation, if you're really willing to look at it and you don't delude yourself and you don't BS and you just really look nakedly at what's going on, assess what you need to change, make that change and move forward, now you can get somewhere. But for most people at that moment, the feeling of like, I really want to avoid this. I do not want to do this anymore. I don't want to look at this. I remember there was a period in my life I hated my job so much that just driving by the freeway exit, even if I wasn't going there, would just make me feel like this darkness coming over me. And that ends up building up for people that don't understand that failure is a necessary part. So you have to learn to center yourself to not let those avoidant emotions build up. But most people do. Okay. Now, one thing, as just by way of context, I want to state is there is a hard reality to be faced when we're talking about goal setting. And that reality is most dreams never come true. Most people give up. They get into those avoidant emotions, they fail, they're embarrassed, and they end up giving up. Or it's just taking longer than they thought, or they didn't select the goal right. And so as they get those avoidant emotions, they can't even remember why they're doing all this. It just seems like, what am I doing? And they quit. And so we get back to that idea that success is a game of attrition. Most people give up, they fall away. You've got to beat that if you want to be successful. I want to leave you guys with a quote here. And this is by Mario Andretti, a very famous race car driver. And he said, desire is the key to motivation, but it's determination and commitment to an unrelenting pursuit of your goal, a commitment to excellence that will enable you to attain the success you seek. Now, what I love about that is it acknowledges, yes, you have to be motivated. You've got to be excited and wanting it like that's that thing, but you can want something really badly. And if you don't have the follow through, if you're not relentless, you're never going to get there. So really, really pay attention to that. Make sure that you're pursuing something that you are excited about. And then make sure as you go into this that you're not scared off because we said one of the reasons people struggle is their goal is uninspiring. But as you get into inspiring goals, you can start to be a little bit afraid that maybe you're not going to be able to pull it off. And so that can make you feel less than. And people think, okay, that's fine for other people, but it's not okay for me. And they end up giving up for that reason. So we'll talk about how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. We're not going to allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by the enormity of our mission, right? We're going to focus on those incremental steps that we're going to take, those goals that we're going to need to engage in order to get where we want to go. But it is doable. So don't allow yourself to feel overwhelmed. Just remind yourself of what I called the only belief that matters earlier. And again, the only belief that matters is that if you put time and energy into getting better at something, you actually will get better. So not being good at something today does not mean that you can't be good at it tomorrow. And that for me was a saving grace that changed my life. It absolutely set me free because I really felt stupid. I really felt like I was not going to be capable of the things that I wanted to do in my life. And it wasn't until I finally realized that brain plasticity is real and that I actually could get better. It's the nature of the human mind, right? So just the way that the human brain is designed, if you put time and energy into getting better, you will get better. So don't let this stuff overwhelm you. And I have another quote for you. I love this one. When it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. So you're going to fail, you're going to stumble, but come back around not to giving up or quitting or changing your goal, but instead changing the path to that goal. All right. By the end of this goal, my goal is for you guys to be able to stick to any goal. But to get to that, I need to lay down some of the science of goal setting. Now, according to the University of Scranton, a whopping 92% of people who set New Year's goals never actually achieve them. You can count me in that group. That is for sure. Failing to meet goals can be very frustrating and can set you back. But if 92% fail, that still leaves 8% that make it all the way through. So I want to talk about how we all become one of these elite people in the 8%. Now, there are 5 key principles to setting successful goals. I'm going to go a little bit quickly here. So as I have seen in my life many times, there's research by Locke and Latham that I want to introduce you guys to. And there are 5 key principles here from their work. So number 1, commitment. You can't just want something. You've really got to be all the way in. You've got to be prepared to see it all the way to completion. And here's what's crazy. I have heard it said that the last 10% of a project takes 50% of the energy. So imagine, and time. So imagine that the first, and I know how ridiculous that sounds and obviously isn't literally true, but man, does it come close. So you've got 90% of the work to be done takes only half of the amount of time. The other half is when you feel like we're right there, so close, and we just have to get it across. All those final little details they can be absolutely maddening. But if you've built the identity, we're going to talk more about identity later. If you've built the identity that you say something like, I'm the type of person that sees a project all the way through to the end, and you create bright lines and you don't stop. That's when you really get something done. So you've got to be tenacious and ferocious about getting to completion. So that's commitment. The second key is clarity. You must know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. We talked about that up top, but you've got to have real clarity around your goals. Now, the third key, and this can be a little bit surprising to people because I think most people's instincts is to pick a goal that you know you're going to hit. Now, if we're talking about something like building self-esteem, if we have no self-esteem, I have an idea there about actually doing that, like setting really small goals and just sticking by what you say you're going to do. But when it comes to goal setting, there really is pretty clear science. And one of the things that your goal must be is challenging. So you actually want to raise the stakes, because if your goal isn't hard enough to achieve, if it doesn't stretch you, then you're going to be less likely to stick with it. It just is. When we've got a goal that when we think about, we're like, oh, I want to lose 5 pounds. It's like, okay, sure. It's measurable. That's good if we put a date on it. So I want to lose 5 pounds by, January 5th, whatever. Okay, amazing. Like I've got the what and I've got the by when, but what we need to get to is something that's exciting. So what I have found, the reality is that most people you want to be picturing an end state that gets you thrilled. So rather than saying I want to lose 5 pounds, for me anyway, it was I wanted 6-pack abs. There was a period in my life where I was obsessed, ended up getting 6-pack abs. It was really cool. I loved it the most. But I needed that big goal. Now, it took me 2 years to get to it, but at least it was exciting enough to keep me going. Now, if I didn't have that, then the odds of me seeing it through much, much, much lower. But I had the energy to spend the full 2 years getting down to 6-pack abs because I was so excited by that idea. Now, whether I should be or not, that's a whole different question. But I was very excited about it. And it was very challenging. And because it was challenging and because I was excited, I was able to pull it off. All right. The next key is task complexity. It should be hard, but not too hard. And if you're overwhelmed, you're likely to shut down. So you have to be very, very careful. Watch for that task complexity. You've got to find the sweet spot. And that's not necessarily the easiest thing that you're going to do. But when we know that this has to be a challenge, we know that we're going to have to find some middle range. Because if you create something that's so challenging that you don't believe you can do it, then you're going to give up for that reason. Remember, your behaviors follow your beliefs. So it's got to be something that you believe you can achieve, but it also needs to be something that's actually going to be difficult. That's the magic complexity. All right. And key number 5 is feedback. So you want to engage others that are going to cheer you on and tell you when you're off track. Social accountability becomes a huge part of this game. So make sure that you're getting that feedback. All right. The how-what equation. According to research in 2005 by a researcher named Miner, there are 3 things that make you more likely to achieve your goal. Number 1, you must actually be committed to it, right? We talked about that commitment. 2, you must perceive it as something valuable to obtain. Talking about excitement again. 3, you must have a sense of what you need to do to actually achieve it. Going down to that idea of you got to know what to do in the next 15 minutes. So if you're not getting super clear, you're not going to be able to know what you should do to achieve it. And people can really derail on that. So make sure that as you think about what you're doing, that you figure out exactly how you're going to do it. All right. Be thoughtful about that. Okay. With all of that scientific context behind us, now I want to talk about the 7 keys of effective goal setting. All right. Going back to Locke and Latham's breakdown. But I think that when I think about Locke and Latham's breakdown, I think it misses a key nuance. And so you're going to see a lot of that incorporated, but I've added a couple things, which creates the 7 keys of effective goal setting. So key number 1 is clarity and focus. Okay, you need that clarity, right? We've talked about it. You want to write your goal down. You want to be specific. And like a 2015 study by psychologist Gail Matthews showed, when people wrote down their goals, they were 33% more likely to achieve them than people who simply held the idea in their head. This is so important. This is so important. It's one of those weird things. It's what I call emotions make dots feel like they connect that don't actually connect. So you're thinking about your goal, you have a sense of it, maybe there's an image in your head, you see yourself on the podium with that gold medal, you feel like you know exactly what you want, and you're ready to go off and do it. When, however, you go to write it down, you're going to realize that that feeling that you get when you imagine that image or when you describe it to people, and it's, like, oh man, I could just see myself traveling to like one of those exotic countries and, doing something for my country and really competing at a high level and, like winning a gold medal. Now, when you use all those words, you feel like you know exactly what you're doing, but that's emotions connecting dots that make it seem like you understand something that doesn't actually fully connect up. When you go to write it down and you hold yourself accountable to no commas, no parentheticals, no run-ons, just like, what am I here to do? And so I'll give you a real example from what I'm doing. So at Impact Theory, our goal is to make sure that nobody gets to the age of 15 without encountering a growth mindset through story. There it is. A nice, simple sentence, which I thought I understood until I went to write it down. And at first I wrote it down in a whole bunch of different ways. And then you realize, wait a second, this is going to translate into what I'm actually going to do. This is going to translate into my day-to-day actions. And this is going to translate into, the after picture, the thing that I'm actually trying to get to. So, as you begin to break it all down, you realize that there are a few key beats that need to be in it for it to be exciting, for it to match the skills that you want to acquire, for it to be something you care enough about that you're going to fight through all the difficulties. And so writing it down not only gives you something to like anchor on, to hold on to reread, but it forces you to concretize that emotion that you have into a sentence. And once you take it from the realm of the subconscious, the realm of the body, and you bring it into the realm of the mind, logic, what you can articulate, it's going to force that level of clarity. Now, the more detail you can put in, instead of me saying, like, for instance, so Impact Theory, our goal is to make sure that nobody gets to the age of 15 without encountering a growth mindset through story. Okay. Now, in the beginning, it was just like, I want to give people a growth mindset. Okay. Well, there's a lot of different ways that I could do that. And it wasn't until I started writing it down and realizing, like, I need something that points me in the direction of what to do in the next 15 minutes, right? So that addition of making sure that nobody gets to the age of 15 without encountering growth mindset ideas in story. Okay, word. Now I know we're going to be at a storytelling level. What kind of stories are we going to tell? And I can begin to whittle that down until I get into hyper specificity land. And I can say, okay, this is what I need to do with the next 15 minutes. I need to find that story, or I need to find that writer, whatever the case may be. But that specificity becomes everything. Write it down. All right, focus. Being clear isn't enough. You have to sustain that focus, but sustaining focus is incredibly difficult. And it's going to require that you reinforce what it is that you're trying to do. Now, you could reinforce this by putting images on your refrigerator. You could reinforce this by telling your friends every chance you get. You could reinforce this by meditating on it every night. Whatever it is that you want to do, but you want to revisit with a high degree of frequency, especially in the beginning, what it is you're trying to accomplish, why you want to accomplish it, looking sort of obsessively at your progress, and you want to be getting imagery. What's imagery that means this thing to you, right? So finding an Olympian, if you want to win the gold medal in the Olympics, finding an Olympian that won the gold medal in the exact sport that you want to win it in, that becomes very clear imagery. So having something that you can hold on to, that you can obsess with, that you can interact with, all of this becomes critically important. So clarity and focus. All right, key number 2, create massive excitement. You've got to get yourself so hyped up about this because you are going to have to endure a long period of time of things going wrong, of getting punched in the mouth, of failing, of being embarrassed, of having to pick yourself back up, learn something new, keep going, deal with your ego. It is crazy the number of things that you're going to have to do to deal with those failures. Creating massive excitement is one of them. So, as they say in marriage, 80% is selection. The same is true of goals. You've got to pick something that you have a natural inclination for. You're not doing it for your family. You're not doing it for your friends. You happen to love this thing. So don't set out to be the number one video game player in the world if you don't love video games. Don't set out to be the greatest accountant of all time if you hate math. You want to pick something that is legitimately exciting to you. Now, this is something you have to really want. So you're going to have to build a tremendous amount of desire. Now, the good news is there is a process for building desire. So here it is. This is the 3-step process for building desire to make sure that you want this thing badly enough to absolutely crush it. All right. Step 1 of building desire. You're going to visualize. You're going to take that imagery that you were conjuring up. You're going to hold on to that. Step 2, you're going to think about why you care. So you've got this image. Why do I care about it? Step 3, you're now going to invest emotionally in this thing by dialing up the way that you embody that talk about the goal so that you trigger a brain response which justifies the amplitude of your reaction. It's a really fascinating part of the way that the human mind works is that there's a book you can read on this topic called How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Feldman Barrett. And in that book, what she lays out is most people think emotions are top down. I had a thought. That thought made me feel something. When in reality, it's the other way. Your body feels something. Then your brain tries to interpret, why do I feel that way? And then it will explain it. Now, there's absolutely fascinating literature out there about why the brain works this way and examples that show that, in fact, the brain is often making up a story to explain to itself why it's doing something. So I'll tell you one, for instance, absolutely fascinating. Read V.S. Ramachandran's book, Phantoms in the Brain. Can also read David Eagleman's book. Oh God, what's it called? I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, very easy to find. David Eagleman writing about the brain. And it is incredibly fascinating. One of the examples, and I actually don't remember which of these books it's in, but the example was a person has damage to his brain that makes it so he has no short-term memory. So a doctor could walk in, introduce himself, leave, be gone for 3 minutes. That's how long it took him for his working memory to let it go, and come back in and reintroduce himself. And he could reintroduce himself to the patient over and over and over every 3 minutes. And there was no sign that they recognized him. Now, the doctor was like, but what if when I reach out to shake hands, I have a pin in my hand. So when you shake hands, it pokes him and, it's an ouch moment. And so he does that. The person jerks their hand back. Why'd you do that? And then the doctor leaves, comes back, and waits the 3 minutes. So when they come back into the room, the person does not remember them. And the doctor offers their hand. Now, what ends up happening is the person will refuse to shake their hand. Why? Were they faking the memory problem? No. When you ask them why they won't shake the hand, you realize that a different part of the brain stores memories around the physicality. And so it knows that there is a problem with that hand. But it doesn't know, because of the memory is gone, it doesn't know what the problem is. But the brain abhors a lack of answer. So it's going to make some shit up. And so if you ask this person, and they did, why won't you shake hands? You would get a different answer every time. Sometimes it would be, I've never liked shaking hands with people in lab coats. It might be, I don't shake hands with doctors. It might be, I don't shake hands on Tuesdays, whatever. But they will come up with some reason. Now, that is a mechanism that is just true about the brain. So if I say to you, I'm really excited to win a gold medal in the Olympics, my brain goes, oh, I guess this isn't that big of a deal. If, on the other hand, I go, oh my God, I have finally decided the mission in my life. I am going to put all of my time and energy into winning a gold medal in the Olympics. I'm going to do it for my family. I'm going to do it to represent our country. I'm going to show that I can stick with something. Now you can see I've completely changed the amplitude of my excitement. Now, irony of ironies, even though in the beginning that feels like I'm being theatrical, the brain is going, whoa, we're having a big amplitude of reaction here. This means something. This must mean something. And it will overlay a story. Now, the story that you're feeding it is why it matters to you. So if you've got the story about why it matters to you and you're matching that amplitude, then it really reinforces. And now all of a sudden you're like, I actually do feel that. I actually feel, after 3, 6 months, whatever, I feel the level of excitement that I want to feel. It is absolutely incredible. It works extraordinarily well. And if you focus on building that desire, now you're going to have the energy to see it through. All right. So set big goals. That's the key. Get something that gets you super excited, because the bigger the goal, the more likely you are to see it through. All right. So going back to Locke and Latham, there's a great quote. I'm going to be citing an abstract from the study, and it goes like this. Results from a review of laboratory and field studies on the effects of goal setting on performance show that in 90% of the studies, specific and challenging goals led to higher performance than easy goals, do your best goals, or no goals. Goals affect performance by directing attention, mobilizing effort, increasing persistence, and motivating strategy development. Goal setting is most likely to improve task performance when the goals are specific and sufficiently challenging. So again, going back to that idea of it's got to be something that's challenging. It's got to be stretching you for whatever reason. When you've got that versus something that's like, hey, everybody, just do your best, you're far more likely to reach for it. Now, I think part of the reason is, again, going back to what are those evolutionary imperatives that we have in our brain, the directives that are in all of our minds that we're not going to be able to get rid of whether we want to or not. And nature would need to incentivize us to accept a challenge, to rise to a challenge. And therefore, that would need to be something that feels good in and of itself to make sure that we do it. And by the way, again, conversely, if you're not doing it, then it doesn't feel great. Locke and Latham go on to say, the more difficult and valued a goal is, the more intense our efforts will be in order to attain it, and the more success we experience following achievement. So get after it. Go after something that's difficult. Dream big. Set big goals. And that's one of the reasons I said at the top that people end up struggling with this. They have uninspired goals. They're just not that into what they're trying to achieve. And because this takes so much energy and it's going to be difficult to achieve the thing you want, you have to have that thing that's going to allow you to sustain. And setting a nice big goal is one of them. All right. Key 3, massive pressure. You want to create massive pressure on yourself. You've got to commit. You have got to be all the way in. If you aren't completely committed to your goal, then you're not going to make it. All of that avoidant energy is going to build up and you're going to end up quitting. And this is why most people quit in February. All right. How do you put that massive pressure? One way is through identity. Who do you have to be in order to get this done? And then actually be that person. You need to figure that out. And I use identity statements in my life a lot. And that is, I'm the type of person that. So I'm the type of person that when I commit to something, I'm going to see it all the way through, no matter what. I am not making excuses. I am not going to quit on this. Now, if you're going to be that hardcore, you need to make sure that you're aiming yourself at a goal that's worthy, right? It's exciting, it's honorable, it's moving you in the direction that you want to go. But if you do that, then it becomes about that there's two parts of this identity thing. So part number one is just, I'm the type of person that, then describe the behaviors that you would need to do in order to accomplish it. And you're going to repeat it, right? Reinforce. We talked about that idea earlier. You've got to reinforce this stuff. So I'm going to say it to myself. I'm going to say it to my friends. I'm going to say it to my family. I'm going to put it on Instagram. I'm going to tweet it out, whatever. I'm going to reinforce exactly what I'm doing. Now, you also have to be accountable. So you've got to really look at whether you're doing the things that you said you were going to do or not. And what ends up happening is, because you're saying this and you're putting it out there, the desire for congruence kicks in. And now you're being held accountable essentially by a trap that you set for yourself. Because you told the world, now you've got to see it through. This is why you have to be careful what goals you set. Because if you're setting goals that you're not that interested in, and you create all this external pressure to live up to it, then actually having to live up to it can be very not fun. So you want to be very thoughtful about what goals you set and how you go about achieving them. Okay. Now, key 4. Start with a hypothesis. So key 4 is being strategic. If we're going to be strategic, then we need a hypothesis. And this gets into that idea of the physics of progress. So a big part of achieving our goal is actually knowing the steps to take to get there. And that's what being strategic is all about. All right, we've got this big dream. How do we get there? And the answer is the physics of progress. The physics of progress goes like this. Basically, by the way, the physics of progress is simply the scientific method recontextualized for business and life. So there's nothing. What's interesting is I actually didn't realize that's what I was doing. I put all this together just describing what I do. And as soon as I said it out loud to somebody, they were like, oh, that's the scientific method. And I was like, what? And I looked up the scientific method. And I was like, oh my God, this is literally the scientific method. Now, either I had those ideas planted in my head in middle school or wherever I learned them, and they suddenly finally surfaced, or this is an example of a different discipline, in my case, business, bringing to the forefront something that truly is the nature of that thing. And that's why it's discovered in multiple different areas in the same way, is that it's the physics of it. It is the baseline. In fact, the idea of when I say the physics, I'm talking first principles, where you're no longer reasoning from analogy. It's just you're describing the way things work. And so the reason the physics of progress is the same as the scientific method is because the scientific method is about progress in technology and science, whatever. And so it's just the nature of moving forward. And the nature of moving forward goes like this. Step 1, where am I trying to end up? Okay, there's somewhere I'm trying to get to. It's my goal. Step 2, I'm somewhere. My goal is somewhere else. What's the impediment between myself and my goal? Identify that. Step 3, come up with your best guess. In fancy language, we'll call that a hypothesis. But ultimately, it's just your best guess. Now, your best guesses will get more educated over time, but it's really just a best guess. So what's my best guess on what's going to lead me to where I want to go, to get over that obstacle and to get to my goal? Once I have my hypothesis, then I turn my hypothesis into a test I can run, a lever I can pull, however you want to think about it, something I can do. It's not in somebody else's control. It's something I can do and nobody can stop me. So got my hypothesis, I turn it into an action that I can take, and then I do that action. And then, because my goal is so specific, what, by when, how much, I can see the result of my test. Did that move me towards those metrics? Did I just take a meaningful step? Yes or no? If I did, amazing. Is there more to learn? Could it have been more efficient? If it wasn't, why wasn't it? And how do I learn from that failure? Now, remember, failure is the most information-rich data stream that exists because it hurts. It forces you to pay attention. It gives you that sense of, I don't want this to happen again. Focus, memory, we're in it. Okay, so instead of trying to dodge the failure and make it somebody else's fault, problem, wasn't me, it's just the world, whatever. Instead of doing that, we're going to take our lumps, we're going to take our shots, because if we look at that, we can actually get better. And the analogy that I often use is when somebody wants to hurt you, when you failed and they really want to stick it to you, they will throw something real at you because they want to hit you with the thing that's going to hurt. But those things, well, they do hurt. They are nuggets of gold. And if you stop and listen, you can pick them up at your feet and you can move forward and actually learn from that and begin that cycle again. And so as you learn from your failure, you now reconceptualize the test that you need to run in order to make a more meaningful move towards your goal. And Henry Ford had a quote around this, and he said, failure is simply the ability to begin again more intelligently. Okay? Failure is simply the ability to begin again more intelligently. So that's it. So you're going to make these mistakes. You're going to start again. You're going to come up with a better hypothesis. You're going to run it. You're going to learn again because it will fail to some extent, right? It's very rare that we try one thing and, hey, we're already at our goal. It's like we have to iterate. We have to try a lot of things and all of that. Okay, so that's the band that we want to be moving in. All right. That is being strategic. That's the physics of progress. And as you pursue your goal, just know that you're going to be doing this over and over and over. And so the one thing you have to watch out for is you're inevitably going to get bored. And I have often said that I think boredom kills more dreams than failure. Because what ends up happening whenever you want to do something that's really extraordinary, because remember, to make our goals stick, they need to be a stretch, they need to be a challenge, they need to be inspiring. So they're going to be by their nature like, oh God, they're right at the edge, maybe a little bit beyond what I can quite reach today. So that means it's going to take a lot of time. And like, if you want to be an amazing musician, you're going to play a lot of scales. The scales are boring. And so do you want that thing badly enough that you're going to keep playing going through the boring stuff? Have you put enough social pressure on yourself? Are you holding yourself accountable enough, right? Have you gotten yourself excited enough? Reinforce those ideas, become obsessed with it. Have you done all of those things? If you have, then you'll be so excited by what you're trying to accomplish that you're going to push through the boredom because you get excited about what the skill set is going to allow you to do. And focusing on skill set lets you do something that other people can't do. And it lets you do something that you care about that allows you to contribute to the group, right? So that is the key. Now, I will say that as you're pushing through boredom, also recognize that boredom is an ally. And that by creating the space for you to get bored, you're going to put yourself in a position where you've got new and better ideas. So if you ever find yourself struggling to solve one of the problems and to come up with a better informed hypothesis, allow yourself to get bored. It can be really, really useful. And then start mapping out your plan. All of this has to be translated down into things you can do right now. Now, I don't mean that your entire life should be thought of in 15-minute increments, but it's a really great judge as to whether or not you have enough clarity. And whenever you don't know what to do with the next 15 minutes, you may know what your goal is. That may be clear and established, but you may not understand what the micro steps are that you have to take in order to get to your goal. And so whenever you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what to do with the next 15 minutes, that's when you know, I now have a clarity problem. And that just becomes a great measuring stick for you. Is, okay, I no longer know what to do with the next 15 minutes. And I know by nature that means that I don't have enough clarity. And you're going to sit down and identify what that next micro step is that you need to take. Getting bored will help create the space for that, for you to think through these ideas. Meditation is big. It's beyond the scope of this, but that is definitely the idea. Okay. Key 5, take massive action. You got to get your ass to the gym if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to add muscle, if like me, you're trying to get them 6-pack abs. It's fought in the kitchen and in the gym, and that's it. And you've got to get both of those things right, way more on the diet side, but you want to take action. You want to take massive action. Don't wait until your research is complete. I hear this all the time. People have a goal. It's very exciting, and they want to do just research, and then they will finally take action. But the reality is what you have to be doing is learning as you go. So you're going to do something, learn, do more, learn, get more intelligent, better hypotheses, better tests, and you just keep going. But to think that you can sit and sort of think your way to actually knowing what you're doing, you will learn way slower. Even if you read every book ever on the subject, you will learn far slower than the person that just gets in there, makes mistakes, learns how things work, gets their hands dirty, begins to understand like the nature of this beast, right? Don't think about things, think about the nature of things, but you're only going to get there by being in the middle of it and getting your own responses to really get a feel for it. And it's interesting, I talked earlier about the brain oftentimes is justifying what the body tells it. The body's got a lot of intelligence. And so getting an understanding of how something moves, how something works, being in the community or making the product, whatever the case may be, all of that stuff is really informative in terms of how to progress more intelligently. All right. So you got to be taking that massive action, doing the things that you need to do, getting your focus right? Going back to that idea of imagery, making sure that you have it, making sure that you're obsessing. And then the last part of this is you want to make sure that you implement what I had alluded to earlier, which is bright lines. So bright lines are when I'm taking massive action. One of my bright lines is, for me, because I've got this huge goal, right? I'm trying to build the next Disney. It's this huge task. Okay. So for me, Monday through Friday, if I'm awake, I'm either working or working out. Now, I'm not saying everybody should do that. I'm just saying those are my bright lines. So that for me is important to organize my life in a way where I know I should be doing something productive right now that's moving me towards my goals. Now, remember, my goal is very exciting to me. It's honorable. So I'm getting fulfillment. I'm getting better. I feel a tremendous sense of progress. Okay. That progress is huge. And I'm getting that progress because I'm in this, running the physics of progress, making all these little tweaks, running all these experiments, taking my shots, my failures, my embarrassments, all of that. But I'm learning from it. I'm getting better. And so I'm progressing. And if it's true, and I think it was Tony Robbins that I heard say this, that progress is a foundational pillar to human happiness. Now, if that's true, and that certainly seems true to me, then getting in there, doing the physics of progress so that you can make progress becomes a critical part just to your overall sense of well-being. So I put my bright lines in place, and I know that that's going to help me do the things that I need to do in order to achieve what I want to achieve, but just also feel about myself the way I want to feel about myself. And that is one of the most important things that you could solve for, because honestly, how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself is probably the single most important thing to pay attention to in your life. All right. Key six, evaluate your progress and adjust. What gets measured gets improved, as they say. So you need to know your metrics. You need to have a sense of, okay, I'm going to do this thing by this date in this quantity. And now, as I run my experiments, I need to see, did I take a step forward? Yes or no? If I took a step forward, amazing. And if I didn't, then it's a bummer. And I'm going to learn from that mistake, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that the next step actually does take me closer. But if you're lying to yourself or you keep pushing your deadline, like for instance, if I miss a deadline, I don't delete it and put a new deadline. I cross it out in red and I put the new deadline there next to it. So I forever see how many times I missed that deadline. It's a really good way to keep you accountable, to keep you sober on how much progress you're making or not making. So I would really keep your eyes peeled for that. All right. You need to know what metrics matter for your success, by the way. So let's take a gym example. Let's say that your goal is you want to bench press twice your weight by the end of the year, whatever. Okay. So we know what the end state looks like, and we can actually back into then what we need to be doing now in order to, like, because we could break it into 12 equal increments, or maybe we back weight, later, because we're going to learn a lot about the gym, but we come up with some benchmarks that we should, that we should figure out where we should be by 1 month in, by 2 months in, if we're going to end up hitting our goal. That way, we're not taken by surprise. And so the data points you could be looking at are strength. So how much am I actually able to bench now? And how much is that going up by week or by month? You could measure the size of your muscle. You could measure the number of times you go to the gym. Whatever the data points are that you think will lead inextricably to getting to your goal. So find those things. What are they? Make sure you're measuring them. Make sure that you're keeping up on it, and make sure, most importantly, that you're adjusting your approach if you're not getting the results that you want. And let me tell you, one of the best things that you could do if you want to stick with this is to get some wins, some little wins. Just like, oh man, when I started, I couldn't even, let's say you're benching the bar, right? And you're a little embarrassed and you don't want people to see you, but you start benching the bar. And then it's like you put 2.5-pound weights on either side. That's exciting because now you see that your progress is growing. So do whatever you need to do in order to make sure that you see that progress. All right. Key 7, you got to get gritty. You got to get real gritty. You've got to hold yourself accountable. You've got to absolutely refuse to quit. You've got to, as they say in cross country, you've got to storm the hill, meaning attack the hill. When you are running in a cross country race and you come up to the hardest part of the race, you want to make sure that you really go after it, that you don't back off because, oh man, it's going to be hard. It's like, no, we're going to hit it. We're going to attack it. We're going after this. And so you're going to attack that hill, run harder, run faster. You can use Jocko Willink's idea of when something bad happens, you just say, good, we're going to deal with this. We got it. And you always frame it as, all right, I'm going to get after this thing. And by having that attitude of it's all in my control, I'm holding myself accountable. I am not going to give up. I know that success is a game of attrition, and there is no way I'm going to be one of the people that falls by the wayside. Then you've got a chance. To get there, you're going to need some discipline. Now, what is discipline? Because it is, in my estimation, the holy grail of mental assets. Now, according to vocabulary.com, and this is a quote, the origins of this word offer great clues about its current meanings. The Old French discipline referred to punishments and suffering. The Latin disciplina meant teaching, learning. The Old English version referred to a branch of knowledge or field of study. So if you're really good at word origins, you might want to make etymology your discipline. This is part of their quote. Developing discipline as a form of training is a military concept that's more than 500 years old. Okay, so here are the elements from that I want you guys to put together. All right, so you've got my sort of belief that self-discipline is really one of the holy grails of your mental toolkit. And then you've got just the meaning of the words that are really feeding into this, which is something to do with punishment and suffering, something to do with teaching and learning, and this whole military concept. Okay, so if we know that we've got something tied to learning in pain and suffering and this construct that is born of sort of militaristic thinking, then it gets very interesting. So discipline is the thing that you need when things get so hard that it is around suffering, but the things you're able to accomplish are far bigger, better, more scalable when you have that kind of discipline. And Jocko Willink, if you don't know who he is, absolutely incredible guy, an amazing thinker, military guy. And he says that discipline equals freedom. Now, why does discipline equal freedom? I think that discipline equals freedom because once you know, and I mean know about yourself, that you aren't going to quit, then all of a sudden you're not looking for like the way out or, how do I do damage control? You're just like, okay, what do we have to do to figure this out? And I'm going to figure this out and we're going to move forward. That's discipline. All right. Merriam-Webster throws a little spice on this, and I like this. They say, noun, control gained by enforcing or obedience or order. Now, if you apply that to yourself, it's pretty sexy, in my opinion. Terrible words. I know most people are going to hate the idea of making themselves be obedient, but I love that. I'm obedient to my goals. That is absolutely true. And the definition as a noun, the practice of training yourself to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. Now, the idea of how to use reward and punishment is outside the scope of today's webinar, but it is a very, very powerful thing. All right, I want to leave you guys with some action items. Number one, you've got to get clear. Write your goals down and then work on developing your ability to focus. If you need to do a dopamine fast, put your phone down, cultivate that boredom so that you can really find the great insights that will lead to the ideas that you're going to need to run that next test, to come up with that next hypothesis, so that you're existing in the world of the physics of progress. And I want you to run the physics of progress. What's your goal? What's the impediment? And do 3 tests that you're going to run to see if you can take a meaningful step towards it. Learn from the failures, make the next one smarter and more important, and see if after those 3, you can't have made a slightly bigger bit of improvement, or at least gotten yourself excited that this is a process that you can run it. Just remember, 3 times is nothing. You might have to do 300 iterations, 3,000 iterations. Edison said he didn't fail 10,000 times. He merely found 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb. So if some things just take that much time, and like I said, boredom is the thing that kills more dreams than failure, then having the excitement that you need to get through that will be critical. But try 3 loops through the physics of progress to get you going. That will be really, really helpful. And then last but not least, meditate. Mindfulness meditation will really help develop your focus. I know it doesn't seem like it, but by continuing to come back to the breath, that really is where you go with that. And then I have a reading list that I want you guys to read. So the first book is by Angela Duckworth, and it's called Grit. It is absolutely a phenomenal book, which is going to address one of the big problems that a lot of people have, which is that you start something, you're really doing it. You ran the physics of progress, you were really into it, but then you're like, well, Tom did say that this should be something that I'm excited about, that it's giving me more energy than it's taking. This isn't that. I think I just chose wrong. And so I'm going to discard that and I'm going to start a new one. And so, which by the way, is completely reasonable. And if you chose the wrong goal, like I said, selection is 80% of it. So if you chose the wrong one, move on. Absolutely. Don't waste months or years of your life chasing something that you quickly realize you don't actually enjoy. So you move on to something else and you give it a go and you realize, yeah, this one's not for me either. So then you move on to the next one. Yeah, this is not for me either. By the time you move on to the 4th one, I think we can safely say that you have a problem. You like the beginning of that journey, the sort of initial hit of I can do anything, the setting the big goal, getting yourself excited, all of that. That's the part that you gravitate towards. And then once it gets into the boring part of doing the hard ass work to actually get there, then you quit. But to you, it's not quitting. It was just being smart. And so Angela Duckworth's book goes through exactly how to deal with that. So I would read that very much. And then the other book is Tim Grover's book, Relentless, which is absolutely phenomenal. All right, everybody. That is the class. Those are the 7 keys to making any goal stick. I really do believe that anybody can do it. It is a process. You must get good at it. You must be relentless in the pursuit of it. And I hope that you can embrace that there is no sort of, pill for that. There's no quick fix. There's no simple thing. Oh, here's how you do it. The quick, here's how you do it is you don't quit. You just keep making progress. And that really is where most people fail, is they just cannot sustain that energy. And when they can't sustain the energy and they're getting bored or it's too hard or they're embarrassed, they failed too many times, they stop. Avoidant energy builds up and they tap out. Don't let that be you, my friends. Don't let that be you. Truly, there is an incredible world that awaits you. I took myself from scrounging my couch cushions to really having a level of success that I won't say I couldn't dream of, because when I was a kid, I really did dream of that thing. I was obsessed. But at the time when I was struggling, I had no idea how I was ever going to be able to pull it off. And the fact that it ended up being these ideas that I'm talking about here is incredible, because it's a process that you can teach to anybody. These are just ideas. They are not unique to me. There is nothing special about me. It is, here's a set of ideas that you guys can use in your own life. Now, again, we're doing this webinar as a part of Impact Theory University, which we're making a very special limited offer. Only 1,500 people are going to be allowed in at the price of $871 for yearly access. I don't think we've ever offered a price that low. Don't intend to do it again. So this is the lowest price you're going to get. But again, it's only available to the first 1,500 people, and you can go to accessitu.com. Again, that's accessitu.com, and you can go in and get started. And if you act fast and do it tonight, then you will be able to get our 2 free Nights with Tom, which were pre-recorded, that I think are really fun, have a lot of great information that you guys might enjoy. And the only way to get that, though, is to act quickly. All right, guys, that is everything. I hope that you got a lot out of that course. I hope that you will sign up for Impact Theory University. I love seeing people in there. There's an extraordinary community of people that I think will really make it a wonderful experience for you. The ideas are powerful. The people that you meet that share these ideas are even more powerful. As I say, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The question becomes, where do you find these amazing people? And the answer is Impact Theory University. All right, guys, I hope that you will join us. And if you do and end up don't liking what you see, don't worry. I will offer you a refund. No questions asked. Not a problem. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.
Hey, Tom, do you have time for a question or two?
Oh, yeah.
We have you for a little bit longer, if you don't mind saying that. And I'd love to just start with, if anyone's on the fence about joining ITU, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that I completely get it. I understand. It really comes down to what their goal is. So everything really does start from the goal. So you want to ask yourself, what is my goal? Very clearly. And would the things that we teach at Impact Theory University be helpful? So we have 2 tracks. We have a mindset track. So all of the emotional rebalancing, all of the belief system work that you're going to have to do, right? Behaviors are governed by beliefs. So if you don't get your beliefs right, your behaviors are never going to line up. So if you constantly struggle with behaviors, odds are you have a belief problem that's manifesting as a behavior problem, but the behavior is the symptom. And then we have a business track, and they're together. So take one and you get both. And if you've ever wanted to learn how to be a linchpin inside of a company, how to be an entrepreneur, we go through all of that. So if that aligns with your goal, then I would say giving it a shot is the right answer, because you can't lose. If you're not happy, we will give you a full refund. And it really just comes down to the time. But once you understand what you want to do with your life, and you believe that you can get better at anything you apply time and energy to, suddenly how you spend your time becomes a spiritual consideration. So I think that this is a very important thing, and we try to contribute very meaningfully to that.
Sweet.
What else, Amy?
You ready for some questions?
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go.
At Tom Bilyeu, where does the book Atomic Habits stand in the way with goal setting, since it says don't set goals, but set systems? So I need to read. I haven't read Atomic Habits, so it's possible that he's got something even better for us. So right now, I won't be able to give you any great insights into that book, but it does make me want to read it. All right, Tom, question. How do you tackle unexpected burnout? Okay, so I have very strict, bright lines around burnout. So I don't do burnout. I don't do overwhelm. Now, I don't avoid overwhelm by having infinite shoulders, though if I'm completely honest, I do remind myself that I can carry any weight, but I actually know that that isn't true. So it's this weird thing where I want to get myself into that attack the hill mode where I want to be aggressive. I can carry everything. But the way that I carry everything, partly by being aggressive, and then partly by recognizing that sometimes the answer, are you ready, is to do less. Sometimes that's the right answer. So if you're feeling it, it's all crashing down on you, it's all too much. 1, I don't do overwhelm. So I use that as a pattern interrupt. I'm going to stop that, because overwhelm is the sense you can feel it escalating. I know that feeling so well. And you just have to say, I don't do overwhelm. Stop right there, back off. And now what I'm going to do is meditate and figure out if there's something I need to take off my list. But I need to de-escalate the situation. That's critical. And then burnout, if you've just been doing something for too long, take a break, go on vacation, play video games, hang out with your friends. So for me, there's no rule that says that you have to work all the time, even when it stops being fun, right? Joy and fulfillment are the punchline. So if working and pursuing and trying to grow is now getting in the way of that, then chill out. Like for me, during Christmas from, call it roughly December 17th through January 2nd, I don't work. I don't work at all. I totally chill out. I hang out with my family. I eat junk food. It's amazing. I don't do it very often, but it's amazing. And so if you need a vacation, take a vacation. One goal at a time or a few concurrently. Okay, this comes down to time. Now, ideally, you would have goals that reinforce each other. I think 3 to 5 is the magic number. So in my life, I should say really in any area of my life, I have 3 to 5 goals. Now, there's only so many areas you're going to be able to spin up. So in my life, because so much of what I do is focused on business, the 3 to 5 goals that I have take up virtually all of my time. But there's one thing that supersedes that, which is my wife and my marriage. And then I have goals below that, which are, say, reading. I like to read a lot, and my family. So I'm going to make time for my family. I'm going to definitely make time for my marriage and my amazing wife. And then the business goals obviously eat up a lot of the time in real estate, but I know to be very careful, not so that they crowd those other things out. So you want to be very thoughtful about not trying to do too many things so that you're not doing anything well. You want to make sure that you rank order things. And a lot of people, like for me, my rank order goes my wife, my business, my family. Now, not a lot of people are super capable, excited about rank ordering their values, but I think it's really important. And then your goal setting will be based off of that. So again, values are telling you your goals, and everything starts with a goal. What if we're older, 50s? How do we keep goals realistic without limiting oneself? Stacy, we don't keep goals realistic. We keep goals exciting. Now, we don't want them to be so challenging that they're impossible, but realistic, I think, means throw it in the dirt to make sure that we're going to achieve it. What's that thing you want to do? So first of all, if you're saying, well, I'm in my 50s, am I really going to start a startup that I'm going to need to run for the next 20 years? Why not? Or you could run a startup that you're going to sell in a few years, or you want to run a marathon, but do it at a pace that makes sense for you. There are a few things where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to do at your age. If you told me you want to win a gold medal in the Olympics in gymnastics, I'd be like, ooh, I think that while it doesn't violate the laws of physics, it's coming pretty close. So I don't know that putting all the time and energy into what you would have to do to win the gold medal in the Olympics in your 50s, which would probably involve drugging other people and like eliminating a lot of the competition. I don't think we want to get into that. So beyond that, I think that it's really just how much time and energy are you willing to commit to something? And then are you interested in gaining the skills? Because this is really just a skills-based question. So there are some skills, no doubt, that will diminish with age, but in the grand scheme of what you could do, it's really pretty small. So don't focus on your age. It doesn't matter. Go hard. You've got decades ahead of you, barring, I mean, look, none of us are guaranteed even tonight, but barring anything unforeseen, you've got decades ahead of you. So dream big. Tom, how do you personally organize your to-dos for the day? You mentioned you cross off red missed deadlines, tips for chunking a big goal daily. Okay, so here's what I do. I keep a list of important things. So my list literally just says important things. I try to carve out as much time for important things on my calendar, but I always start my day with that. And so what you're doing is in order, and this is where people struggle. You got to put it in order using something called ICE. ICE stands for impact, confidence, and ease. So impact, if it works, is it going to impact things positively? Confidence, how sure am I that this is going to work? And ease, hey, huge impact. I'm confident it's going to work, but it's going to take a year and a half, right? So figuring all of those things out, and then you rank order things. And so I do that roughly by ear. But the thing that I am just committed to, if I put something in first place, it's first place. If I put it in second place, I do first place first. So I rank order things. I just do not have a hard time doing that. You need to get very comfortable rank ordering things and not panicking when you're like, but 1, 2, and 3 are all the top priority. You just can't allow yourself to think like that. So I have a bright line around that. I'm the type of person that can put these things in order and there are no ties. and then you just execute. Because remember, you can only do one thing at a time. Now, you do one thing until you can't move it forward anymore, and then you move on to the next thing. So it's not like you're going to do all of number one before you can move on to number two. Number one, maybe you have to send an email or have a meeting or go into the gym or whatever the thing is. You go do that. And then like if it's a gym goal, well, you can't do all of the workouts you're going to do over the next 6 months in one day. So it's like you do as much as you're going to do for that day. And then now you're in a waiting period. So while you're in the waiting period, then you move on to the next thing. But the key is to spend the time putting the things down on the important things list that you need so that you don't have to waste time thinking about it. You just know exactly what you should be doing. And then boom, you're off to the races. So getting that huge goal broken down into the smallest steps. So for instance, let's say that you want to build the next Disney. Okay, well, that's big. What do you have to do? Well, where did Disney start? He started with these short stories, putting them into theaters. Oh, okay, amazing. So it starts with the IP, the stories. Cool. What do I need to tell a story? Well, I either need to write it myself or I need to find a writer. If I'm going to write it myself, then the next 50 minutes should be coming up with the idea, right? Super clear. If I'm going to have another writer, then it's coming up with the methodology of finding the writer. So there you have it. Win King. How do we know if our goal is set wrongly or it's because we don't have enough grit to make it happen? Okay, this is where Angela Duckworth comes in. She has a whole way of assessing that, but the real quick punchline is if you start over 3 times in a row, odds are that you have a commitment problem. And if you just steer by that, I think it's a very, very good indicator of whether you just like the beginning of something. And then be honest with yourself. Hey, I just like the beginning. So do I allow my life to be dictated by that? Because remember, there's no right way to live your life. It's joy and fulfillment. So if we know that we're looking for joy and fulfillment, do we want to just start a bunch of things and then stop? Because that's really fun and we love it. We could do that forever. And we want to be, a dilettante with no negative connotations. Just like, I want to go learn a little bit about a lot of things. And so, okay, now we just start adjusting our goals and we pick goals that give us the life that we want. That's the aim of a goal, to pick goals that not that impress other people, pick goals that actually excite you and that create the life that you want, that the struggling with that goal gives you the very thing you want. Because of course, the success is not guaranteed. Suzanne would love a bit more clarity on setting bright lines. Okay, so bright lines are binaries. We either do them or we don't do them. And once we understand that I have a line in place, so I'll give you some of mine. This is going to sound stupid, but the single most important rule, bright line, that I have in my life is that once I realize I'm awake, I get out of bed in 10 minutes or less. Period. No questions. That's it. Now, I had to put that rule in place in my early 20s because I would lay in bed, this is true, for 4 to 5 hours a day, every day. Yeah, you're not going anywhere interesting if you're laying in bed 4 to 5 hours a day. Now, I don't know why I find it so hard to get out of bed because that rule every day of my life, I have to struggle with that rule. Now, full disclosure, I actually don't hold myself accountable to that on the weekends, but Monday through Friday, I am out of bed in 10 minutes or less. And that rule has been huge in my life. Also, Monday through Friday, a very strict, bright lines around what I eat. So there are a certain number of calories that I can eat, and it's a bright line. And I don't eat calories that are outside of that. So if I'm eating my carrots and I see a chocolate bar, I don't go, oh, well, I can have that today for XYZ reason. Nope. I want it today. And every time I see it, I want to eat it. But I have bright lines. So I know what I'm allowed to eat for the day. And that's it. And that chocolate bar is either in or it's out. And if it's out, it's done. Discipline equals freedom. Because I know I have my bright lines, I'm not going to eat that chocolate bar. Plain and simple. Because identity. I'm the type of person that when I set a rule, I stick to it. I'm the type of person that when I have a goal, whatever rules that I have to put in place in order to achieve it, I'm going to do, right? So this is where it all becomes this confluence of events. You're creating these bright lines that keep you going towards your goal because your identity demands it. Bright lines, binary. Kaleidoscopic iris, kaleidoscopic iris, something like that. How do we know when we're on the wrong goal, I think is what that means. If it isn't fun, it's draining you. And when you imagine achieving it, it isn't exciting. And that's a great thought experiment to run. That if you can imagine, I have the skill. Like, let's take playing the guitar. If you think not about the scales that you have to run, but instead you think about, I'm at a party and I'm there with my guitar and people are calling out like their favorite songs and I'm able to play them and everybody at the party is so excited. Or I'm Carnegie Hall and I'm playing for thousands of people and roses are being thrown on the stage, or, whatever. You get that image and you're just so excited by it. And then you think about the scales that you have to play. If you're that excited about it, play those scales, man. Don't let yourself down. Like, that's definitely the moment to keep going. Now, if the idea of doing all of that is like, be kind of cool, but like, is it cool enough to go through all this? I'm not so sure. Once you're asking that, then move on. But again, if you do that 3 times in a row, you have a commitment problem. How do you deal with the buildup of avoidant energy again? Okay, so this is where you have to identify what is the cause of the avoidant energy. So I don't want to be around this thing anymore because I keep embarrassing myself. I'm losing credibility. I don't like the way it feels. So you have to identify the avoidant energy is because when I fail, it makes me feel stupid. And I realize that my identity is tied up in feeling smart. Okay, then your real problem is that building your identity around being smart or being right, that is a death trap. You want to build your identity around being the learner. Now, when you build your identity around being the learner, now it's like you're free to make mistakes, to own them, to admit it, and to keep going. So that's what I would focus on. Tom, how do I get clarity on what I want to do? I don't know what my goals are. Yes. So this is a big question that people ask all the time. You are an extraordinarily good company. The vast majority of humanity doesn't know what they want their goal to be. So this is what we're going to do. 1, don't prematurely optimize. So don't feel like you have to have that life goal right now. You want to go play, go have fun, go explore. What is that thing that you enjoy? Try sports, try metalworking, try accounting, try dance lessons, try computer science, whatever. Try anything that even remotely piques your curiosity. When you're doing it, you're going to learn a lot more than you will by reading about it, watching videos, thinking about it. So you get in there and you start doing it. Now, as you're doing it, what you want to discover is whether or not it's giving you more energy than it takes. If it gives you more energy than it takes, that's something we want to start investing in. If it takes more energy than it gives, and you're like, oh God, like, I don't want to come back and do this. Cool. Then we move on from that one. You do enough of those and suddenly you're going to find something that you just can't help think about. Your mind just returns to it. And it's not like it's a passion. It's not like it's your life's mission. It's just interesting. And you find yourself thinking about it and you want to go do it more. So go do it more. And if the more you do it, the more fascinated you become, then you're going to go down the process of gaining mastery. And as you embark upon that process of gaining mastery, that's when we're going to start setting our goals. But until then, we want to experiment. Now, like anything, your experimentation period can become pathological. It can become avoidant. But if instead you take the time, you go do this thing, there's a few things you're quite interested in, then get serious. And you can start setting some goals around like amount of engagement, involvement going in. And I'm going to spend over the next month, I'm going to spend 30 hours playing the guitar, whatever, and do that. And you're going to discover whether that's turning into a fascination or not. And once you know that it's turning into a fascination, then we're going to embark upon the idea of mastery. And then we get into the real goal setting. But it's a nice stair-step process. Busy Mayan. Tom, thank you for the talk. Absolutely my pleasure. What's your best way to write down your goal? By writing it in a journal, put it on a whiteboard or Post-it note? Do you put it in a place where you see it every day? So what I would do is if I were just beginning, I take notes in Evernote. So I would take my notes in Evernote. And then if it were really important and really new and I wanted to reinforce it, I would take that nice short sentence, I would put it into an alarm on my phone, and I would set that alarm to go off once a day, a couple times a week, whatever, however often I feel I need to reinforce it. And that way it would just really get into my mind. But yeah, journal, that's huge. For me, I do it on computer into an alarm. So it, goes off and forces its way into my brain, and repeat. Winter Bloom, thank you for an easy to understand username. At Tom, what do you do if you have two things you are extremely passionate about? How do you choose? Can you do both, or do you have to do just one? Okay, this is the most hateful question in the world, because my whole life is haunted by the fact that I know that I can do anything that I want with my life, but not everything. And that makes me so sad. I really want to be able to do all the things that I want to do, but alas, time will dictate how many of those things you can do. So there's no like objective number. I ballpark it at, you can be pursuing 3 to 5 things max. And depending on the level that you want to play at, you can really only do one at a truly world-class level. It's pretty rare that somebody becomes the best in the world at multiple things. So yeah, specializing is really the key. So 2, maybe you could get away with it. Maybe you prioritize them. One is slightly above the other. But yeah, you're going to have to pick. Hi, Tom. My husband and I recently fulfilled a personal 5-year goal. Amazing. We are now setting a business venture. Do you think there is a difference in goal setting strategy between personal and business goals? Not really. I mean, there will be in some of the specifics, and the stakes certainly become different, but the mechanism is the same. So everything that we've gone through here is exactly how I use it in my personal life and in my business. I'm just not as, I guess, clinical in my personal life. Every now and then I am, though. I'll set myself a real challenge and be like, okay, by this date, this much, all of that. And that can be really fun. Because I have so much of that in my business, my everyday is just dripping with goals and the physics of progress and just the amount of time I spend in my business. I tend to be more informal in my personal life. But if I had more, like if I were stuck and didn't feel like the informal stuff was working, then I would put nice, concrete, official goals in. Charles J. How do you balance demanding high of yourself and accepting where you are at the same time? Okay, so my thing is that I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. Okay, this is one of my beliefs. I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. Okay, if I'm only going to do those 2 things, then I ask, well, do I need to kick myself in the ass and get myself to recognize you're not doing good enough? You could do way better than this, and come on, let's go. Or do I need to show a little bit of love, grace, and understanding? And I do whichever one the situation demands, and sometimes both. And I steer by how am I feeling about myself. If I'm feeling like shit about myself, then I know I'm going too hard and I'm beating myself up. But the reality is, can I give you guys a secret to life? I think people are far better off kicking their own ass and then just taking action. It's the taking action is what cures everything. It's going and learning the skill, getting better, trying something new. That's like, all of the you should love yourselves, they pale in comparison to setting out on a goal and actually achieving it. Like when you do that, and they don't have to be the craziest goals ever, but when you set something that's a bit of a stretch, a bit of a challenge, and you pull it off, it is amazing. So following through with the things you say you're going to do are going to make you feel wonderful about yourself. So I would focus people there, and yeah, take action. Action cures all. All right. Last one. Job, may I ask, what once liberated you before in your life, but now maybe not? What once liberated me before? I have something that's maybe slightly the reverse. For a long time, I needed to believe I was smart. It didn't liberate me, it trapped me. But it felt like I was being kind to myself, to be loving towards myself when I got things right and all of that, and to be proud of myself when I did something that somebody else said was smart. And then I finally realized, wow, that's a terrible way to learn, because I only want to do things that I know that I can do right. And so I was never stretching, never sort of getting beyond that. And So instead, what I did was flipped it and said, I'm going to accept the thing that I fear most, which is that I'm hopelessly average. And once I did that, that really ended up being super helpful. And it made me start asking questions about the nature of the human mind. And once I understood the nature of the human mind, then it was like, oh, wait a second. So I'm average, but I'm an average adaptation machine. In fact, I'm the average version of the most extraordinary adaptation machine that nature has ever created. So it was like, whoa, okay. So I am designed to learn and grow. I might be average, but if every average person can 100x their life, then that would be pretty extraordinary. I wouldn't even recognize myself if I were to 100x my abilities in a given area that matters to me into the world. And so that was what I focused on, was doing just that. And that ended up being just absolutely life-changing for me. All right. Thank you all so much for being here, for joining us. I see I just put on the screen. You can go to accessitu.com to join. I hope you will. Impact Theory University. I am so passionate about it. It's already helped so many people, and you have nothing to lose. If you're not happy, we will give you your money back. All right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope that you will move quickly, take advantage of the special $871 for the whole year. Again, it's the best offer we're going to make, only letting 1,500 people in at that price. So don't delay. And if you act quickly, you get the fast acting bonus of the 2 An Evening with Tom recordings. All right, everybody. I hope this added value. By the way, if you didn't like this, you won't like Impact Theory University. I will just warn you, Impact Theory University is exactly like this. And if you love this, then you're going to love Impact Theory University, because Impact Theory University is exactly like this. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.